Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence, and I appreciate you being here as we speak with an artist whose group perform April 2nd and 3rd at Pipeline Cafe and have the distinction of not only being one of music's most unique fusions of pop culture elements and creativity, but they're innovators on other fronts as well, like recording their latest project using 100% solar power. We'll hear about that upcoming project and the group's Hawaii connections and lots more as we warmly welcome the frontman for the band Cake, John McCrea. Aloha, John.
Oh, hey, how are you doing, Dave?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
Good. Doing quite well. Thank you.
Big mahalo for being here, dude.
Thank you.
And for taking some time for us. How far back do you go with Hawaii?
I have been pretty much broke most of my adult life until, relatively recently. So, and then once I started making a decent living and enjoying health insurance and things like that, I was so busy with the band on the road that I didn't have a chance to take vacations. And when I did have time off, I was so burnt out from travel that I didn't want to go anywhere, stay at home. So I have really only been to Hawaii, Maui, and Kauai fairly recently. And I found it quite beautiful there. I'm looking forward to seeing another island. But yeah, so I don't go way back with travel generally.
Oh, well, you've been a busy guy, and I've appreciated your live work for a number of years, and I'm sure I speak for many fans who are grateful that you've been so hardworking. But if you could just sort of talk about, you did mention, let's see, you said Kauai, I think, and Maui, and Oahu, was it?
Just Kauai and Maui.
Kauai and Maui. And when did you go?
Just within the last maybe 5 years. So,
tell me about your trip to Kauai.
I'm sorry?
Tell me about your trip to Kauai.
That was the first time I'd ever, seen anything that looks like that. So it was actually pretty, sort of breathtaking and shockingly beautiful, and such a different ecosystem than the one where I grew up and live today in Northern California. It's it was just strikingly different in so many ways.
What are some memories from your trip in particular? If you were to think back, what are some of the things that you did while you were here?
Well, hiking. I enjoyed hiking on a very muddy trail that overlooked the sea, and diving and seeing colorful fish and the usual tourist crap, I guess, and seeing whales, and it's pretty life affirming to actually see animals in a fairly working ecosystem. Living in overpopulated California, you forget that animals exist in their natural habitats.
You're talking about the whales?
Whales, and we have some whales off the coast here, but it just seemed like more teeming with life generally. Certainly, the tropical fish lend that impression.
Whales are awesome. That is so cool that you were here during the season. They're not here actually all year round.
Yeah. I think they're sort of here, some of them, and I guess some of them go to Alaska and other places as well.
We share our whales.
Yeah, well, that's good.
We were raised well. We share.
Yeah, well, that's good. I recently met a whale researcher, biologist, marine biologist, who's studying the false killer whales that live in and around the islands, and apparently there's, I guess, just a few left because of various things. But it's interesting that they were just listed as an endangered species, and so they're they're going to have to try to protect them, and good luck with that. But I don't think anybody's ever seen those. So you've probably never seen one because they're a little more elusive.
Yeah, there are a lot of elusive creatures when it comes to some of the treasures that we have to guard, especially our endangered species here in the islands. And no doubt you were able to be here at a special time to take advantage of that. Any other enduring memories of Kauai while we're on that subject? If you just think back to your trip, just because listeners here, I ask because listeners always appreciate the perspective of, especially of a musician they admire, and even more, perhaps, John, the fact that you have so little experience with the islands, it lends itself to a fascinating perspective.
Yeah, well, I mean, the what is the trail? The Napali coast trail, is that what it's called?
Yep, you did that.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most breathtaking hikes I've ever been on. So, I that was probably actually one of the most vivid memories that I have of my trip. And it was muddy, and I came back, completely covered in mud, but very happy.
That's a satisfying experience. And how about Maui? Tell me a little bit about your trip to Maui. How long were you there? Remember where you stayed?
I don't remember where I stayed, and I don't remember exactly how long I was there. Probably about a week, or in a few days, maybe. And I was on the west side of the island mostly, and was pretty much really burnt out from working too hard for a long time. And I know people don't think musicians work, but we do. So I just really need to just relax, and I just kind of vegged out, and went to diving, looking for fish, and visited some of the volcanic areas. I guess, where was it? I'm trying to remember. On the west side of the island, there's some volcanic areas, and hiked around on the lava beds. But I'm forgetting the name of them.
Haleakala?
Yeah, that sounds like it. And then also, drove the rental car up, like, on the very narrow roads on that same side of the island, the north west side of the island, where, like, I guess you're not supposed to drive the car, and we drove just sort of like into an area where the road got narrower and narrower, and there were little villages where people were selling pot, and it was just really interesting. And we hiked around and just kind of went literally off the beaten path, and didn't get into too much trouble, but had a great time.
That's good stuff. I'm taking it, you've never played here?
No, we haven't. I think it all sort of depends on. We don't choose not to play a certain place. It's all sort of up to the promoters that put on shows in a given region. So, we may have gotten an offer or two to play Hawaii, but I don't think we ever heard about it, or maybe it didn't make sense. It's generally not up to us, though, when we don't play a place.
Yeah, I know how that kind of stuff works, and I'm sure people don't hold it against you. But I must say, on that note, it's quite positive that, and there are a number of positive things that relate to you and Cake, but one of them would be for a band making their first appearance here to be doing 2 nights says a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I mean, it shows a lot of either blind confidence or regular confidence. I'm not sure which it is.
Hey man, it's something, because we both know promoters wouldn't do it if there weren't.
Right, those guys, they're very practical people, aren't they?
It's all about, as I was just saying to my news director, Kayla Rosenfeld, it's all about putting asses in seats, isn't it?
I guess so, huh? Yeah, it's really business, but it's hopefully they'll be happy asses and everybody, and no seats will be vandalized.
No, I'm sure that. I'm sure you'll bring in a great crowd. You said diving. Just to clarify, were you talking about snorkeling, or were you're scuba diver?
No, I'm not a scuba diver. I'm not crazy. Just snorkeling.
Okay.
Yeah, just snorkeling. Are you a scuba diver?
I'm not, and in my radio time, I've had a lot of people try to either have me certified or trade me out certifications for appearances, lots of stuff. So I've earned the chance to be certified a number of times, but I'm sort of a pussy, and I don't want to go that far under the ocean, period.
Yeah, me too. I get claustrophobic just being in a bunk on a bus. I don't know. There's something about not being able to breathe that freaks me out.
Oh, I'm all there with you, brother. It took me so long just to learn the snorkeling routine and get comfy.
Yeah, I very much enjoy the snorkeling, but being that reliant upon technology and in a life or death situation, I don't like it.
Oh, it's frightening, man. I lived here for so many years, and one time, I live right in Waikiki too, and one time in the last couple of years, we went to the beach, and there was about a 6-foot shark in the water about 3 feet from the ocean, and it happened not once, but about 2 months later, the exact same thing happened. They had the HPD down there getting people out of the water. I've never been the same since, so I can get scarred easily with the ocean.
Yeah. We have some similar stuff here in California. I mean, there's the great white sharks are breeding just a little bit north of San Francisco here.
Right.
And it's after the rains, you know how it is. Like they look for fish coming out of the streams and rivers, and there's every year there's people that have chunks bitten off of them. I guess it's just the shark doesn't really want to eat humans, but they do little test bites sometimes, and a test bite, I guess, is enough to rip off an arm or leg, and I like to keep my arms and legs.
It's a very serious test.
Yes, serious test bite. So, but at any rate, yeah. Well, I respect people that are willing to take recreational risks. Life is short. You may as well take a few risks, but you just have to choose your poison, I guess, sometimes.
What are ones you're willing to take?
Well, flying in airplanes, as much as I do, feels like a risk. I hate to say it, but...
Good point.
What's that?
Good point. I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, and being on buses with, bus drivers that a lot of them seem like they are in rehab or still using crank. It's they don't screen the bus drivers for rock and roll tour buses. And
I thought you were just talking about getting on subways.
No, buses, like tour buses.
Right.
The industry seems sort of Wild West to me, and we've had tour bus drivers that have done things that just seem like things that an ex-convict would do or something.
Like what?
I mean, try to I don't know, just steal things. Try to use meeting the band in order to get a blowjob from someone. Just really low rent kind of trashy behavior. And some of it has been, I don't think it reflects well on the band, but, we don't have any way of really screening these guys. The bus companies assigned them, and one of them seemed like he was on speed and would be super, super grouchy every morning and would yell at people if they asked to stop to go to the bathroom or anything like that. And it turned out that, he was, using drugs while he was driving. Like 9 people were, sleeping at night, hoping that they wouldn't die. And it was just, so anyway, this is a side of things that people probably don't expect. But it's actually, I have so many friends in bands who've been in bus crashes, who have, some of them have been paralyzed and, lost limbs or various things. So it's actually pretty dangerous.
It's a very serious thing. Rock has lost some legendary cats in that way.
Yeah. So whatever. It's. I mean, you kind of have to just keep on living your life, but realizing how fragile it is isn't a bad thing as well.
One of the things that you're to be admired for is certainly having that kind of view about the earth and its fragile nature. I'm assuming that is some of the inspiration for what is a very positive story relating to energy consumption. Fill me in on how your record is being done with solar power.
Yeah, well, it was really not a big deal when we finally got around to doing it. We had been thinking about it for years, and it occurred to us, hey, we have our own studio. There's no reason why living in California, there's no reason why we shouldn't be getting, energy from the sun. The thing that cinched it for me was reading about Germany being the number one producer of solar photovoltaic energy. It occurred to me, having been in Germany and seeing how overcast it is there nearly all the time, it occurred to me that we are, it's really a crime not to be slapping some solar panels up on the roof. And we did it, and it's really a good time to do it right now. The prices of solar panels have gone down like 30% or so because of the world economic recession.
Right.
And there's all these incentives for businesses to tax breaks and things like that. So it's just like it's really once you do it, you realize, well, you ask yourself, why didn't we do this 10 years ago? And so maybe the reason was because solar panels were 30% more expensive. But anyway, we're really glad that we've done it, and it was really easy, and it doesn't really impact our process in the studio in the slightest bit, and it feels good to know that we're not as much a part of the problem. We don't kid ourselves that we're not part of the problem at all, but at least we've sort of reduced it.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing. So you kind of answered one of my questions. So you never had an obstacle that you've run into doing it solely on solar power, meaning you were able to generate enough power to be functional.
Yeah, no, it's not that at all. It's really easy. You use the grid, the electric grid, as your battery, and so you feed into it. Sometimes when you don't need it, you're feeding into the grid, and then when you don't, and then when you do need it, you use it up again. And so it's we're lucky that in Sacramento, where our studio is located, we have a public utility,
Right.
which is much better than a private utility if you're producing solar power, because they actually send us a little check every month for our excess electricity that we don't use, and so they actually pay us money for the extra power that we create. And as music, recorded music, descends in value, it's you never know. We might really appreciate getting those $25 checks a month.
You got a good sense of humor, but you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but it's funny.
It's so true. The age of the torrent.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a situation in which like one person's job is sort of singled out and somewhat devalued. It's hard for the people, the musicians that I know that are not big stars, but like need to pay their bills, and maybe they just had a kid and they don't want to have to tour 350 days a year and not see their kid grow up. So it's that's sort of the human side of it that I'm sure most people that are using torrent don't want to hear, but it's sort of real anyway, even though a lot of people don't want to see it. But it's not the huge artists that are really being affected very much. It's the sort of medium-sized artists or smaller artists that have been around for a while, because certainly for new artists, everything about the internet is great. It's so much easier to get noticed initially, but what's difficult is actually putting food on the table as a result of recording your songs.
Yeah, I mean, the devaluing of music is absolutely massive, and virtually anything that you want, you can just acquire. It's like we are evolving into a world, and I was reading something where Google were explaining their ultimate vision, and I think it sort of lends itself for looking at maybe where we're headed. It's like we're evolving into a world where all of the music will be out there and you won't have to pay for it and you won't even have to own it yourself. That whole concept of I had that record or I grew up with that record, it'll be the records are out there and everybody can plug into them and they're all free.
Yeah, and so the only problem that I can see with that is...
There's a lot of problems with that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of problems. Like one would be how do I eat food and not have to tour continually? And I'll tell you, selling T-shirts is not going to solve the problem for bands.
I think it's 2 words, Taco Bell.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that's a devaluation, in my opinion. And but also, what's really, I mean, music is just really a luxury product. What's, I think, worse for culture, a culture that deems information as without economic value, is the loss of real journalism that covers what's going on at City Hall, and that is investigative reporting and things like that. Bloggers can't really fill that void, and unfortunately, that sort of investigative journalism and professional journalism is something that I think democracy needs in order to exist. So when we're unwilling to pay people to do those kinds of jobs anymore, I'm scared.
Well, I'm glad that you put us in there, because when you were speaking originally and talking about the hardships, I sort of wanted to just interject, same thing's happening to radio. It's finally happening to TV. It's ridiculously happening to print. And so, yeah, you're right. Things are really changing. And then on the other note, something else you said that I want to kind of address, cakemusic.com is one of the most updated interactive sites for any band, the way that you constantly are updating, whether it's the road journal in the band section or the news flashes in the news section, the weekly question. I learned through reading that you're both very political and an NPR public radio listener. So when you think about the changing in media, has that been what's driven you further towards public radio, or did you always have a love for it?
Oh, I've really loved public radio for just years and years. And, part of the reason I hate traveling is because I don't know where the NPR station is sometimes. So, yeah, I'm sort of NPR dependent. I'm a member, and it's just one of those things that I hope doesn't get too diluted. I hope people continue to be willing to pay for it, and it's just it's one of those things. Again, though, it may seem really solid, but like all of journalism, it's hanging by a thread in a culture that sees information as free. It's hanging by a thread, and so that thread may be a little thicker this year or thinner next year, but it's really something to be treasured. And I'm all for information being free, but I think first we should have sandwiches be free.
Cheesesteaks, at least.
Something, you know what I mean? Something so that it's fair to purveyors of information. You can't just say your job is free and mine isn't free.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And you're speaking to someone who agrees, and I've seen it happen, as you probably are well aware, in the radio business. But being here in public radio, at Hawaii Public Radio, first of all, you found your public radio station when you're out here, hawaiipublicradio.org. And we have 2 program streams, and we are the home of NPR statewide in the islands. We're also the statewide stream, so we're we have a huge listenership throughout the islands, and we have a fundraiser coming up April 14th to the 24th. I'm just thinking out loud, maybe while you're in town over April 2nd and 3rd, since you're here for a couple days, you let me record a short interview while you're here. Maybe it'd be a nice thing for us to play during our fundraiser drive, kind of showing some support from you.
Sure, that'd be great.
Is that all right? Is that an imposition, or?
It's not much of an imposition. I'd love to help you guys.
Okay. Cool. Well, I mean, if it's something you don't mind doing, just because I can tell you're passionate about it, I appreciate seeing your support on your website, and fans can take a look at cakemusic.com themselves, and you'll be awed by not only, like I said, the diligence about how frequently you update the site. It gives you a real feeling of knowing what's really happening with the band, but you also take the time to acknowledge you're a public radio supporter. So that'd be a way of giving back, and we'd appreciate it very much, John.
Oh, it wouldn't be a problem at all.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed taking a moment for me today. It's been a pleasure getting to speak with you.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for your interest.
You're the man.
That's great. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to help, and thanks for asking. Good job.
Thank you, my brother.
I just wanted to, I mentioned just briefly.
Sure.
But you guys are losing the false killer whales. I didn't want to get all preachy about it, but there's an article in your weekly.
Honolulu Weekly?
Yeah. A few, maybe like a few weeks ago. Just Google or just sort of do a search for false killer whales. But check it out, because maybe you guys could help that cause, because basically it's almost like your state fish, because it's like only around the islands, and it's like this. It's a really trippy. Just bear with me for 1 second.
Sure.
It's a really trippy animal. It basically is a compulsive food sharer. And so what happens is one of the whales will catch a 50-pound tuna fish or something,
mm-hmm.
and it will not eat it. It will pass it around to the entire pod, and then once the entire pod has held the fish and passed it around, they take bites and they pass it around and around until it's finished. And they've even been known to throw fish at fishermen. And then thinking that they're going to throw it back or whatever. It's one of the only animals that does this.
It has that behavior.
It is the only animal that shares food like that.
Right, that has that kind of behavior. It sounds incredible and I've never heard of them. They're called false killer whales.
They're called because somebody mistook them for a killer whale, but it's actually unfortunately the name sounds kind of technical and boring. But it's actually a magnificent, fascinating animal. Anyway, Google it or something like Weekly False Killer Whale, and there's an article about it. And I think you have 500 of them left.
My buddy Adrian is the managing editor there. I'll email her after we're done talking.
Yeah, ask about them. There's 500 of them left. A friend of mine is the researcher. I think he was actually quoted in the article. His name's Robin Baird, and anyway, basically they're trying to get these things classified and protected under the Endangered Species Act, and I don't know what that's going to mean. Hopefully, fishermen don't freak out, but basically they have to figure out a way of not losing them because there's only 500 left.
Hey John, I'll do you a favor. My one of the guys. There are a lot of great people I work with here, but one of the people I'm close to is our general assignment reporter. His name's Ben Marcus. He's young, he's hip, he's really really nice. He's just done a great piece about the monk seals recently and some other local fish and stuff. If it's cool with you, I'll tell him a little bit about what you said, and if you know this Baird, is that Baird guy? Is he based here in the islands?
He is there a lot, many months of the year when he's doing the research on the false killers. So,
well, what would be cool, if it's cool with you, is I'll run it by Brother Ben and tell him what we were saying. And if you're up for it, then maybe I could go through Tommy and just say, yeah, if John can hook us up with the contact he's got, I could get Ben to interview him, and then you get a real feature, and that's a way to put some traction behind it.
Oh, Robin is a great guy and totally smart, and
you like that idea?
Yeah, that would be super.
Okay.
And it would be super for your, basically for your community not to lose that fish.
Oh, yeah. And it just sounds like a hip article.
Yeah, totally. Well, check it out for sure. And if just get my email from Tommy,
Okay.
or however you want to do it. I will send and I'm going to see you in a few days too. So
Yep.
regardless.
Yep. And I'll reach out through Tommy and just tell him to expect me to ask for it.
Yeah, totally. I've got his email address, and I think I might have his phone number. But he's just in boats around, circling your island all the time. So.
Oh, it'd be a great article.
Yeah, and he's actually a really famous marine biologist, like in the science community. So he's like fairly important guy.
Well, we'll try to make something happen. Thanks for the tip-off. It's always cool because, that by giving Ben an idea for a good story, quite frankly, it's also doing him a solid, so he'll be looking out for me a little extra. So thank you.
Yeah, I figure that one behavior about the food sharing is like a real hook.
It is, and anything that's in our community that's in danger, obviously. If it's in our community, number one, that's the number one thing. If it's in danger, number two. And then, like you said, the behavior being so unusual.
Yeah, it's a kind of behavior that humans need to learn from. So, right there, it's like kind of a good story. So, anyway,
nice.
I thought I would mention it to you, and I thank you for your interest. And by all means, get in touch if you have any interest on the other end.
I will, man, and I'll look forward. I'll see you. Travel safe, and I'll see you soon when you're here.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks so much. It's very nice talking to you.
You too, Brother John. Be safe, dude. Have a great trip. I'll see you in a week or so.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Aloha. This is John McCrea from Cake. You're tuned to the only show that matters with my good friend, Dave Lawrence.